Hi, my name's Starsky and welcome to From the Studio on Clubbing TV. In this episode, I'm taking a look at this absolutely stunningly gorgeous keyboard. It's the Waldorf Iridium. This is the new version of the one I got behind me. The one I got behind me has been out for a couple of years. It's got exactly the same synth engine in this, but it's got this absolutely fabulous polyphonic aftertouch keyboard. Polyphonic aftertouch means that you can do different things with different keys, basically. And what you can hear there is only the notes that I'm wiggling and modulating, so the lower notes aren't doing anything, they're just staying flat. But the higher notes, and it's really, really unusual to get a keyboard that does that. The sort of synth community's been after one for years. Now they've got one in this, and it's really beautiful actually. And I'm not one for playing the keyboard or getting into all that expression stuff, but it really does make you want to play like that. It's absolutely gorgeous. But what makes it different to normal synths is that each of the three oscillators can make sounds in 5 different ways. Basically, it's got 5 different synths in here that can all be mixed and matched. So let's take a look at how the oscillators work. The 5 engines are called wavetable, waveform, particle, resonator, and pushing these two together gives us one called kernels. The wavetable uses Waldorf microwaves, classic wavetables. These are all these things. So I think you've got about 128 of these wavetables, and each of those has got 64 waveforms in. And they make great starting points for a sound because you don't have to create this tone, it's just there. And you can modulate through them to make all sorts of really complex tones. And all those rhythmic patterns are created by moving through this single wavetable. We've also got the waveform oscillator. And this is a virtual analog, so we've got the standard virtual analog wave shapes. That's sawtooth, sine, square, triangle, all your usual virtual analog waveforms, and we can warp those. So let's go to the sawtooth. So loads of nice starting points, but the little trick this has got in here is this thing called kernels, and that basically stacks waves on top of each other. So let's go back to a sawtooth. You get instant big trance sounds out of that. And that's just a single oscillator playing about 2 twists away from the initial patch. Let's try this warp. Yeah, massive. That would have been huge back in 1998. We've also got this one called Particle. And this is a sample engine effectively. Let's load the sample in. Starsky Carr plays the Iridium. And we can edit these, we can change the start point. Starsky Carr. We can loop them. So all the things you'd expect to do with a sampler, but then we've got this granular engine as well. Put it into granular mode. And this chops the sample into tiny little bits called granules, and you can then manipulate them in all sorts of different ways. Here's one from the presets in this by a guy called Richard Devine, and he round robins through 3 or 4 different samples, and every time he presses the key, or every time I press the key, I'm getting a slightly different tone. It's beautiful. And using this, you can create really complex soundscapes from pretty much any sound source.
Plays the Iridium.
So that's a pad made from my voice. Next on up, we've got this thing called the resonator. And this is essentially mathematical modelling of sounds that have been hit or bowed. And you can hear it's still got my voice in there actually. And that's the little twist this synth's got. Most just use a little tiny impulse click or some noise. This you can use anything as a sound source, you get all sorts of weird things again. And then we've got this really complex one called kernels. Press these 2 buttons together. And this is like the DX7 in the 80s or the more recent Korg OP6 in that it uses FM synthesis, but on this it does it on steroids and you've got all sorts of control over it. I'm not going to go into it, it's really complex. FM synthesis is the sort of thing that people scratch their head over for years. It's actually well laid out in here, it's easy to get to grips with. If you want to see a little bit more of a deeper demo, check out my YouTube channel, but basically you can get really nice digital sounding pianos or really dirty things as well. So there's the dirty. And that's more the sort of tone FM synths are famous for. Let's take a very quick look at the filter, shall we? And like everything else on this, the filter's quite complex. I've just played one there, and that one can have all sorts of different models on it. We've got state variable, which is like an Oberheim. You've got inside that, you've got, let's just see, you've got all these different type of filters. I think that's 24. Then we've got another model, a Razor it's called. Again, that's got about 24 in it. We've got the Largo, which is one of their soft synths. And we've got the Nave, another one of their soft synths. I think they're both available, at least the Nave's available on iOS as well. And then we've got the PPG, which is the famous one from back in the 80s. That was analog filters, so we've just got less models on that, 12 dB and 24 dB. And the same as Quantum. This is basically a Quantum, which is a really expensive Waldorf synth. This is only about £2,500. The Quantum's even more expensive, has got less voices, it's got 8 voices, this has got 16, but it's got analog filters, which is why it's more expensive. So you've got models of those in here as well. And just going through a few of the different models, just to show they sound different. That's the PPG. This is the Quantum again. The Nave, Largo, Razor, and the state variable as well. And obviously I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's quite interesting when you start playing them together. Let's put a chord on. Let's try a different mode. Escaping. They're moving apart from each other. And that one's called Endless. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but you get the idea. There's all sorts of different ways that you can create all these lovely complex tones with your filters swirling all around your head. And then the digiformer, as I say, let's go into the digiformer. We've got drive circuits. And we've got a bit crusher that can absolutely destroy a sound. Plus in here we've got lots of different filter types as well. So essentially we've got 3 filters in here. We've got the digiformer, filter 1, filter 2. You can have them in series. You can have the digiformer before or after the other filters. You can have one left, one right, and one in the center. So massively flexible for doing all those complex pads. We've also got effects in here, but they're quite basic. They're really nice sounding, but they're basic. The USP of this synth is the oscillators and actually this keybed now, because this keybed is absolutely fabulous. So what are my final thoughts? Well, if you do have a spare £2,500 lying around and you fancy picking up a really top quality keyboard, you can't go far wrong with this. So well worth checking out. Hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, don't forget you can catch it whenever you like on our Clubbing TV official YouTube channel on the From the Studio playlist. And if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll see what I can do to answer them. And also, if you are interested in this and do want to see a deeper dive of it, check out my YouTube channel, Starsky Carr, as well. And I'll see you in the next episode of From the Studio.